How are you guys doing? How is the food? Yes? Was it worth every penny? Yes? And more and more? At least 3, 4 times what you paid for it, right? This program, as I said over and over and over again, is our community trying to help spark innovation in our community. They talk a lot about what makes America great, what makes America stand out, what makes America a leader. And from my standpoint, as an immigrant, it's our ability to accept ideas from other people, to build upon those ideas, to innovate, to come up with solutions to problems that matter. At the end of the day, we all want to make a difference. And to make a difference, sometimes it takes us getting out of our own heads and into someone else's heads. To get out of the way that we look at the world and see a world that doesn't exist for us, and maybe doesn't exist for anyone. To peer into that world and see what makes that world better, or what makes that world worse, how we can improve that world, and to create a roadmap from how do we get from here today to a utopia that we can only imagine. To get inside the minds of others, we've asked a professional speaker, a consumer psychologist with a PhD in psychology, in business psychology, the chief behavioral officer of ClickSuasion Labs, and the host of the ClickSuasion podcast, Dr. Michael Barbera, to join us. Mike.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you, Michael. So I have to ask you a couple of questions first, and then we're going to turn it over to the audience, and they're going to tell us the questions that they have. When we first started, I had a whole list of conversation topics that I wanted to ask you, and I was going to blindside you, but then you came in crippled with crutches, and I really felt I couldn't do that then. So hopefully, if you don't mind, I'm going to do that now. We asked our members some of the issues that are most vexing to them, and a lot of them talked about how do we figure out what the customer wants. Now, we can ask them, and they may or may not tell us, or they may lie to us, or may they just blow us off. How do we find out what they really want?
So we really don't know, and it's very difficult to know. Most of the majority of the greatest products and services ever made are something that was already there. Airbnb is just a hotel. Uber is just a taxi. Who knew they wanted a cordless phone when they had a rotary phone? Who knew they wanted a cell phone when they had a rotary phone? Who knew they wanted an iPhone when they had the Motorola Razr? It's creating something new and solving that problem. So if we go about our day and we do thousands of things each day and we make countless decisions and we don't think about them, but it's that one decision that we're like, that's not right, that should be better, this should be a little different. There's your pain point. You take that problem and you turn it into a product or a service, and now you've identified something that probably other people can benefit from as well too.
Now, as I understand it, you have a laboratory that you use with ClickSuasion to get beyond what they say, what the customer says, and actually measure what's going on in their brain and what's going on in their body to get verification that they're actually telling us the truth. Or maybe perhaps insights that they themselves don't even recognize. Tell us a little bit about that.
We can have logistics problems, we can have sales problems, marketing problems, product design problems. It all comes down to people problems. At the end of the day, it all comes down to a person. And if I was to ask somebody, or we ask each other, would you buy this product? Why wouldn't you buy this product? You're probably going to give an answer that you think is true, but not necessarily the right answer. 100 plus years ago, if Ford was to ask what people wanted, they would have said faster horses. They didn't know what the automobile was until it was presented to them. So we have to find ways to show the consumer what they really want or how they engage with specific products. For example, if you look at any website, Target, Walmart, Amazon, anything with a shopping cart, the shopping cart's typically in the right-hand corner. And that's there because the first place the human eye looks is in the top right-hand corner. Many years ago when journalism was doing, paper journalism, actual newspaper was doing well, the most expensive place to buy ad space was in the top right-hand corner because human eye tracking, we put on a fancy pair of glasses and we put a newspaper in front of you or a screen and we can tell you where you go. So we can watch where maybe your mouse goes, your hand goes, or on the track bar, but your eyes go somewhere else. So what is the consumer actually watching or doing, and what are they actually doing with their hands? Two different things.
Now, how do you measure that? How do you, as I understand that there are some ways, some technologies that you're employing that can help us peer inside their brains.
There's countless ways to measure it. You don't have to have the fancy human eye tracking equipment. You don't have to have all the fancy analytics. You can have an Excel or a spreadsheet or a Google sheet and start counting whatever someone is doing and just make sure it's accurate across the board. So for example, we'll put RFID chips on shopping carts in grocery stores. And as the shopping carts are zipping out through the aisles, we can see on a heat map or near real time where people are stopping, how long they're stopping for, and then we can push products in certain places based upon consumer behavior. And then when you scan that loyalty rewards card for your favorite grocery store, and you're like, I'm gonna get some cents off today, I saved 16 cents. Oh, by the way, when the cashier says, oh, you saved $42 today. No, I spent 106. It's little ways of reframing the message and making the consumer feel better. But it's also putting the consumer in a position of empowerment and finding out how they engage. So when you scan that loyalty rewards card, and you're not just getting a discount, the company is getting your information, your data in exchange. Well, every time Mike buys ketchup, he buys turkey. Weird combination, and now we're seeing a trend. If other people are doing the same thing, we're gonna start putting ketchup next to the turkey.
Now, there are surveys that we put out, and we put out surveys for this conference, and there's a number of people that reply to these surveys, and there are a number of people that don't. Now, we've experimented, like for example today, with the fortune cookies. How many of you guys ate the fortune cookies? Right? So the fortune cookies were provided by Mike, and thank you. It was really nice of you, and we took the liberty of lacing them with RFID tags. So we can track what people are doing for the short term. We don't want it, it's nothing permanent, you know. But have you seen, how are these, the big companies, the big boys that have the budgets, how are they using this biometric kind of data to see our behavior and track it without us knowing?
Everything we do is being measured. Every time you drive on the highway, more than likely your GPS in your car is tracking data on where you go. You use Google Maps, Apple Maps, or Waze, it's tracking all your data. You don't have your name tag. It doesn't say Sam Smith went from point A to point B. You're just a number. And it's tracking everywhere you go, your speed, where you stop, how long you stop for. Your insurance company is buying that data, and they're using that to recreate policies. There's endless ways to track information. So one of the problems we also often get is somebody will call us and say, hey, Mike, we have this problem with X product, and we don't know why the consumers are doing this behavior. We have no data on it. That's a lie. You have data. Everyone here is sitting on data. We always hear, we don't have any data, because most people think that data is some screen from the Matrix with green numbers on a black screen, binary ones and zeros going up and down. If you've got Google Analytics, you've got a CRM platform, you've got a point-of-sale system, you've got data, and you're sitting on more of it than you know. And you don't have to be a data scientist. You can play with the data on the dashboard, and you can find those trends, and you can see when people come to you, when they're leaving you, where they're coming from. And if you're identifying that a specific segment of the population is coming to you from a certain place, target that certain place, but also dig further back. Where are they coming from that place from? What's the behavior before that? If we created a fictitious If everyone in this room, if we got together and we came up with a brand new car seat, we're going to say, this could be the greatest car seat ever. And you don't have to do yoga to tie it into the seat. It's one snap and it's in. Pretty cool product, right? Who is the customer? You have parents, expecting parents. Who's the user? The baby. But the baby's not going to swipe the credit card. Where do expecting mothers go? When you have a traditional North American family, you have a male and a female. Who makes the decision on the safety of the child? Who makes the decision on the price of the purchase? Now you're targeting two different people, two different behaviors. So how do you target those two people, two different behaviors, and two different decision-making processes? Safety versus money. So now if you were targeting expectant mothers, where would you go? And you start by stereotyping. If you think that you have no data whatsoever, or you're in the ideation phase or concept phase, start by stereotyping. Where would expecting mothers go? And then start building your marketing strategy from there. And you'll find creative ways to branch out.
Now, I haven't been following you everywhere, but certainly just on social media, I've been following some of your, shall we say, interests. And one of them is, I think, going to be familiar with everybody in the audience in a little while, bathrooms. And those people who swallow the RFID tags, please, hold on for a while, as long as you can. But you follow bathrooms. Why in the world have you got all these posts about bathrooms, toilets?
2 words, message framing.
Those aren't the words I would have picked up. Message framing?
Message framing. Actually, walking in this building today, I took a photo of the restroom sign downstairs on the first floor. When you leave, go downstairs and go to that side of the building, look at the restroom sign. It says, it's 2 signs. One, it says single occupancy restroom, I think was the verbiage. And the one below it was lactation station. Okay, so why single occupancy over restroom? Why single occupancy over shared? Why single occupancy over gender neutral? What we've learned through social psychology is that the majority of people will not accept a restroom if it says gender neutral on it. But if you reframe the message to say shared, single occupancy, the whole debate of gender neutral goes out the window and people are willing to use it. It's the same thing in sales. Nobody, if someone says, you need to sign this document, everyone's mother here told them as a kid, never sign anything. Don't sign that, you better get an attorney. We'll okay it, we'll authorize it, we'll approve it, but we won't sign it. So by simple message framing or changing the perception or how it's presented, people are more likely to accept something. I'll go one more further. Restaurants are a great way to express how consumers make decisions. We've all been to a restaurant, okay? I can pretty much guarantee that. When you're in a restaurant and looking at that menu, if the menu has dollar signs on it, a dollar sign plus 23 and whatever cents, you're more than likely to spend less money because the dollar sign now takes your thought process from an experience of having that meal with loved ones to a transaction.
So this brings up an interesting point. So you're looking at a problem from a different lens and looking at something, if you will, if you're framing a term, right, for lack of a better analogy. But you want to bring a new idea, a new concept to a market, much like when you had to explain to your wife why you're taking pictures of bathrooms instead of her, right? How do we communicate a new idea, a new concept to a market that may or may not be ready for it?
That gets tough, and that can get expensive because now you have to educate a specific target audience. So if you reframe the message, if you call, what was VRB, or Vacation Rentals by Owner, which has been around for a long time, which is now competing with Airbnb. Now it's known as Airbnb. We don't even say VRBO anymore. When we do an internet search, we don't Yahoo something. I'm going to search that real quick. We Google it. Google's become synonymous with internet searches. So to create a newly framed message, a way to label something, it's tough. It's easy to come up with a name. You come up with cool phrases, but then does it translate? Does the consumer understand what it means? And in most cases, if it's a new product, a new service, if it's innovative, probably not. But there's also reasons for reframing as well too. It gives you intellectual property protection in the future because no one else is using that potentially. Maybe it depends on what it is. It can get tough, so you have to educate the consumer. And if you can find ways to teach them, video, big hint right there. It's a good way to do it. So I'll share some more consumer psychology stuff about that. So if you can show video, you're more than likely to keep the consumers or users' attention. When you go to a website, within 3 to 5 seconds, you know if you're going to leave. You're not counting 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, okay, I'm out of here. But cognitively, you know you're about to leave because it's not engaging, it doesn't look like a good website, it doesn't mean anything to you. But if a video pops up and starts playing, now they've got your attention. Now you've got your consumer's attention because now there's content. You've captured the eye. The same thing goes to placing videos on Facebook. You can put videos on Facebook 2 different ways. You can upload a video directly to Facebook, or you can add a link from YouTube or another video service. If you upload it from a third-party service like YouTube, the video won't play automatically, so you have to take an extra click. So you scroll, click. That extra step will significantly decrease the number of people that will watch your video because humans are lazy. We're all lazy. We don't want to actually, I have to click something, oh my goodness, that is too much work. But if that video plays automatically, your finger will stop scrolling, and we know that through heat maps and where the finger goes and where it stops, and we know they'll watch the video. So if you make it play automatically, you make it video, make it interesting, keep the consumers engaged.
Keep the consumers engaged. Is there any other communication tips that you would have for us? Any things that from your research that we're missing when we try to communicate with customers?
I'd say be unique, but also what is unique? You know, that's a very broad term. Do what other people are not doing. I'll be completely transparent. I'll share what we do at ClickSuasion Labs. Our marketing doesn't look like marketing. You won't get a sales phone call. You won't get any. You might get an email, but you won't be pushing any call to action. What we do is we market our organization as if it's 1978. We don't want to be known as the company that's using email marketing. That's just looking like everybody else. So we find ways to make it stand out that everyone else is not doing. And we come at you, it's probably a bad term to use. Our marketing is built on relationships, and it's built on trust. When it comes to the business-to-business services, if another person is likely to hire another B2B service because they can get along with them, because they feel like they can have a conversation with them, because they feel like they can have a friendship with them, more so than if that other party is the subject matter expert. So be a human, be yourself, be Sid, be Mike, be Stan, be Melissa, be who you are. And if you're in the B2B industry or your sales and marketing have to do with personal engagement and relationships, absolutely build the relationships. And a relationship isn't checking on you email, it's sending something of value to the individual.
So then in this new world where we're trying to give something of value to somebody, we're checking in on them in a meaningful way, how exactly do we sell to them then?
Well, we don't want to sell. If the product or service is really that good, you don't have to be sold. Everyone in here probably has a smartphone in their pocket for the most part. No one here had a high-pressure sales tactics to get sold a smartphone. And if we poll the room, more than likely we're going to split near 50-50 iPhone and Android. And when you go into a Verizon store or a Sprint location, an Apple store, no one's pressuring you to make a sale. If the product or service is that good, it will speak for itself. And your other consumers or users will also advocate for that. Get other people to advocate. Social proof is huge in marketing and sales. So if there's one thing that you take away from this entire night, well, for me at least, from my portion, is this. The most persuasive thing you can do is show that other people are doing it too. The most persuasive thing you could do is show that other people are doing it too. Think if we're going back to that business and we have that car seat. We're not going to sell the car seat, an empty car seat in an empty minivan. It doesn't look right. We're going to put people in the photo with it. If we were selling tickets to a sporting event, we're going to show a full stadium and people cheering and eating hot dogs and drinking beer. We're going to show people having fun because that key E word is experience.
Now, looking back at your background, I noticed that you were in the military. Mm-hmm. And I had an opportunity to talk to a number of four-star generals and I think 3 chairmen of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. But one of the generals I took a class with was a gentleman by the name of Maxwell Thurman. He was a 4-star gentleman that got Noriega in Nicaragua, for anybody who's thinking. He came up with, if I'm not mistaken, the marketing slogan, "Be all you can be." And in the class, he was talking about how the military is actually the largest marketing organization in the world. You had that background, having a PhD in psychology, looking at how people are selling, and you were also in the military. Is there any kind of lessons that you've learned, good or bad, from your experience with the military and how they are actually using marketing to recruit people, to win over the public?
So my experience with marketing in the military is near slim, but I can give 2 examples of how the military is using behavioral science. The first one is, about a decade ago, the military was having a very difficult time teaching service members how to use new weapon systems. Raytheon would create a weapon system and they put it into a vehicle. Then Lockheed Martin would create another one, and all the controls looked different. None of them were the same. They were not the same across the board. So how do you do that? You reframe the message to the default. What is the default controller in this situation? What does every 18-year-old male do? Play video games. So we make the controller like an Xbox controller or a PlayStation controller. And now that every weapon system has a similar controller, everyone knows where ABXY is. So if a soldier knows where ABXY is, more than likely they're going to live through an engagement because they know that button so well and cognitively that they're going to click A. They know exactly where it is because they play it every day when they go home, but they may not fire a missile every day they're in combat.
Fair enough. There are so many different kind of customers, and you mentioned that we have to test these ideas with various groups to find out what's going to click with them. How can we, it's hard enough to get them to tell us what they really think, what they really want, and they themselves may not really know what they really want until we show it to them. Is there a way that we might be able to shortcut some of this or take some of the risk out by actually collaborating with them from the get-go? Any thoughts on how we could bring them into that design process or collaborate with them?
If you have the opportunity to bring users, customers, clients into your design process, absolutely do so for several reasons. One, you're creating buy-in. They feel like they have a say in the design and the construction and the rollout of this product, and they're going to give you their honest feedback. They're going to tell you, well, if I apply this here, this might work. If I apply it somewhere else, it may not work as well here, and here's the reason why. You're also getting feedback from the individuals that are going to put it into practice. This is a great way to do a collaboration. I have knowledge that I've picked up through my life. I have lived experience, but I don't know everything. But if I was to sit at a table here with 4 other people, all your lived experience and your education is going to combine it together. It's going to be a very valuable lesson because there's a lot of things that we may not be aware of until other people with other lived experience bring it up, mention it, talk about it. I'd say collaborate on every opportunity that you have. I often try to say that I never want to be the smartest person in the room because if I am, then no one's going to give me their feedback. They're just going to look up at me. I want to be the stupidest person. I went to a math conference a couple years back. I do a lot of math, a lot of stats. I was like, I can go to this math conference. I can handle this. And I go there, and it's all the theory of math, not applied math, like the foundation of math. I was like, I felt the stupidest person in the room. I was like, this is awesome. I can do this. But I didn't get anything out of the conference, though.
Being the stupidest person in the room is it's a good thing. I find it very easy, frankly. Or at least surprisingly easy. How do we create a community? How can I create a group of people that will engage and cross-pollinate ideas and build something greater than, amplify what the signal that I'm trying to create?
Incentives. Incentives is the key way to do it. And incentives aren't always a Starbucks gift card or an Amazon gift card. Find something that's really personal to that individual or that segment of the population, whether it be use of the product or service upon release or something else. But incentivize it. And also food. If you can bring food into somewhere, you're going to fill some seats in. People will show up. You feed people, and you got their attention.
Tony, before you leave, Tony's showing us the food is still there, and we have some leftovers. But Tony's also going to tell us the survey. He doesn't want to do this yet. So to build that community incentives, we want to be able to allow people to share the questions that they have, to have them sort of say, these are the biggest challenges we have as a community. One person may have something that is a challenge to them, but they don't know that other people are having the same sort of issue. Oftentimes as innovators, we get very isolated, and that we don't have the opportunity to cross-pollinate with other people that are trying to work on similar problems until we get something like this. There are we've got this gig economy going where we're not working in big corporations anymore. We're working in silos with one person or two people or five people or something like that. And it gets harder. One of the examples that we're having is this fireside chat. Instead of having a lecture, a speech, or something like that, we want to bring in interactivity where people can actually communicate their thoughts, but we also recognize from conferences that we've had in the past that there are a lot of introverts who getting up and asking questions is not their favorite thing, right? So they want to be able to ask a question, but doing it a little less, more anonymously. And so we've been looking at ways that how can we get those introverts who have these ideas that are fantastic, but they don't have that desire to go up and stand in front of everybody and ask the question.
It's scary.
It is. And so we have, unfortunately, I'm an extrovert, so I have no problem talking in front of people. And in fact, people have a problem with me talking in front of people. So I can see how I could drown somebody out. Inadvertent, but I could still do that. So have you seen technology being used in that regard to get at that voice of the customer or someone who is reluctant to stand up and raise their hand, but at the same time they have a spectacular idea?
So technology, someone said it earlier, their challenge was targeting consumers that are digital and ones that are in person. Someone said that, I don't know where they are, they're hiding somewhere. I got you. I'm not gonna shake your hand though. If you walk into a car dealership, and what's the first thing that's gonna happen? You're gonna get swamped by how many different car salespeople, right? And we run away. I'm just looking, and you run away. You'll even get in the car and leave. But then you'll go online and you'll browse. We've made digital marketing, digital e-commerce more personal. You get an email, it's like, hi Sid, how are you today? You put something in your Target shopping cart, you X'd out of the browser, now what happens? You get an email, you forgot something, someone else said it, or you said it, we're going to target you with your mother wants you to buy. It's exactly what it is. It's all data. And another person in here said, I only have one data point. Who was that? Was it you, sir? But you also said that you can get 500,000 data points daily. So I assume there's a date attached to every one of those? Yeah, so now you have 2 data points. Now we start backwards. You've got more. You've got more than you think you do, I promise you. The technology doesn't have to be the most cutting edge. It can be user voice. It can be Google Analytics. It could be a Google Sheet or an Excel spreadsheet. It's how you want to apply it and what you want to measure. So I will scale back a little bit and I'll say, don't stress so much the technology. Don't stress so much the numbers and where the data is coming from. Ask yourself, what is it that we don't know about the product? What is it that we don't know about the service? You may know these 5 great things about it. You may know these 5 horrible things, but what don't we know? And that's the things we have to answer, because if we find the things that we don't know, we'll find ways to make it better, to make the consumer more willing to engage with it, and of course get the consumer to come back and keep engaging with it. Think of your cell phone. Well, everyone here maybe buys a cell phone once a year, once every 2 years. You use it how many hours a day, nonstop, click, 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 scroll, 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 click, 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 click. It doesn't break, it keeps working. Imagine you ran your car as much as you did your cell phone. But as soon as that cell phone stops working for a millisecond, how mad do you get? You get really mad, like, Apple, I hate you. Damn you, Android. It's been working for the last 2 years, no problem, but the minute it stopped working, that's when we identify its faults. Not when it's working. We don't think about how great it is when it's working. We don't think about it when it's not working.
You've been at this, go ahead.
Okay. Give an answer.
With all these people in here, does anyone have to have an HDMI dongle for a Mac? I'm just curious. I need one.
An HDMI dongle for Mac. You have an HDMI dongle for Mac? Oh, you can actually get one from the library, that's right. Would someone run that has a library card run back there and get an HDMI dongle?
Yeah.
Oh, he's from NC State, that's a good one.
That guy. I will be right.
So, what I've recognized is I've been conducting a whole lot of interviews with all sorts of great thought leaders, and I've recognized that I have a set of questions that I want answered, and the audience may have a set of questions that they want answered. But we don't know enough to really ask sometimes intelligent questions. So what's an intelligent question that we haven't asked?
Anything open-ended. Don't worry about what the last part of the question is. Start your questions with how, what, and why. If you start your questions with how, what, and why, you're going to get a ton of qualitative feedback, qualitative data. Start writing that down, record it, listen to it back. And you'll find out a lot of information. I said, here's this phone, play with it. What do you think about it? What would you do with it tomorrow? How likely are you to put it in your right pocket? How likely are you to hold it in your non-dominant hand? You may not give the right answer, but we can get those answers from watching you. But ask with how, what, and why, and you'll find a lot more information than asking answers to get a binary response, yes or no.
What's a question I should have asked you that I haven't?
Good question. I wasn't prepared for that one. What is your favorite type of persuasion? I guess I have to answer that now, right?
So I was talking to a behavioral scientist, an expert, and he said that one of perhaps the biggest challenges that we as product developers, as people, is that we don't know necessarily what is the best persuasion method to use at a particular time. So what would be a good persuasion? How do we know what persuasion tool to use?
Okay. How do we know? It depends on who your customers are and how you're targeting them, how sensitive they are to marketing. And then you can also dial it back to be high pressure, low pressure. There's not one that works in every situation. The one that's probably closest to every situation would be social proof, showing that everyone else is doing it. If we all got in our cars and we convoyed together and we crossed the bridge and we stopped halfway across the bridge because people were jumping off, more than likely most people here would not jump off the bridge, but I promise you, you would peek over the edge to be curious. Why is everyone else jumping over this bridge? But my favorite one is time pressure. And time pressure gets pretty much everyone. You purchase a hotel room, an airline ticket. You have 2 minutes and 56 seconds remaining to complete this order. 55 seconds, 54 seconds. How do you respond? You pull out your wallet, type real fast, you misspell your name, backspace. Got that plane ticket. Last one left. How do you feel? Most people say in the responses, I feel like I won. Well, who the heck did you beat? Who were you competing against? Who won there? Well, the company won because they got your money, they got some more revenue. You won because you got that, what perceived to be last airline ticket at that price. Watch the wording there. There's more airline tickets, just maybe $5 higher. It's great. And so think about when you're ordering concert tickets online, $256, $255, $254. Panic, fear, and anxiety all over the Backstreet Boys.
Backstreet Boys?
I don't judge.
All right. So for all those introverts and the people that don't want to ask questions, if you would be so kind as to go to the website that's listed up there, www.menti.com, and use the code 336457, okay? And text a question we'll vote for it, and we'll find out what people think about it, and we'll have you answer them.
Absolutely, I'll do my best, and if I can't answer, I'll try to point you in the right direction. So as you're playing with your phones, you look at it like this. If someone wants to ask you, now we always have we reframe messages and look at things a different way. If you say, Mike, as a speaker, who's your competitor? Most people would say, another speaker, facilitator, someone who does workshops. But really, it's your cell phones. Because if I say things that are not interesting, or if I lose you, I have to compete with your cell phones. I have to compete with your email going off. Ding, 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 your Facebook, your Twitter. That's my competitor.
That's a tough competitor.
It is a tough competitor, because that's everyone's whole life. 6x3 little box.
All right, how do we compete against that? That seems like a impossible challenge.
You be Sid, you be yourself. Even if it's person-to-person engagement, most people, what they do is they shake someone's hand. Sid, it's a pleasure to meet you, right? It's a standard, typical handshake. But if I was to do something like this, Sid, it's a pleasure. How's that feel? Feel good? You like that? Feel down the elbow? You'll remember that. You'll be more likely to remember that handshake than what if I just shook your hand to hand.
Your wife is right there.
No, she's used to it.
All right, so we have a question. What do you think of the 4 new personality types?
Okay, so I am not sure that I am able to answer that question. So I am trained in personality types, but I am not that kind of psychologist. We have a phenomenal expert on our team, Stevie Pena. She is the personality expert. She will have a 30-second conversation and tell you what personality type you are in every single personality measurement there is. Oh, you're an ENTJ, you're an INTJ, you're the... Don't talk to her. She's scary. So I don't think I'm able to answer that question.
Okay. How did you get into business psychology?
Really good question, really good question. I started as an entrepreneur at 13 years old. And from business to business to business to business, my passion was always marketing. And not so much just marketing, but how people made decisions. And so I went back to school and followed the whole degree and academic path. And turns out this whole field called behavioral economics. Well, behavioral economics is the technical term for consumer psychology, because I say, hey, I'm a behavioral economist. No one's going to know what I'm talking about. Some people might. And it's really that niche of decision science, how people make decisions. And so just following through just lived experience from businesses to going through the academic path and having an interest. And really the curious question is how and why? How and why do people make decisions? Why are we likely to use a shared restroom but get mad at a gender-neutral restroom?
We've got one question. It says, software has eaten up the world. Traditional product managers have user labs and go-to-market strategies. Technologists are kept at a distance, especially in large corporations. What strategies do you have to bridge the gap between the chief marketing officer and the chief technology officer?
That's a really good question, too. It's a really long question. All right, take a look. Okay.
How about this? Do you have an answer?
I think I do.
You want, okay, go ahead.
I'll give a stab at it. I'm not sure why we have a gap between the CMO and the CTO. It might be more of a people problem, more of a human resources problem if you have 2 executives that have a gap between them and not getting along. I would say find ways to get people to engage with one another more often. It sounds like that there's miscommunication in the C-suite.
Don't we look at the world differently? As an innovator, I look at a problem and say, hey, I can solve that problem. The marketing guy goes, yeah, you can solve that problem, but nobody else is going to buy it.
Exactly. So as an academic, I do go to academic conferences, and some of them are marketing conferences, and people present this research they've done, and it's like, that's really cool, that's innovative, I like that. But then as the entrepreneur in me, I'm thinking, that's not sustainable. That's too expensive, it's never going to work, it's going to fail. I could be wrong. I've failed before, I've made my mistakes. But from my experience looking at it, it's like, innovative, cool, but I don't see how you're going to make money off of that.
Yeah, and so that's maybe where that friction comes from. The innovator goes, this is a problem that's definitely solvable. Well, it could change the world. The marketing person goes, yeah, you could change the world, but you'll never make any money doing it.
Don't change the world, change one person. Then change one segment of the population. Then find the segment of the population that very closely matches that segment and change that one. Then find one that closely matches that one. If you're targeting attorneys in Raleigh, then you might want to target attorneys in Greensboro. If you're targeting attorneys in those 2 cities, Who else works in the legal field? Maybe you target paralegals, or maybe you target specific firms in nearby cities. So you just keep bridging the gap by following the train. Don't try to target attorneys in Raleigh, Greensboro, and then Los Angeles. You got a significant gap, and you're not going to bridge it with the entire country and different views in the way.
I have to tell you something. Your wisdom is so enlightening. We're interrupting the power supply here.
That's a first.
It's research. It's research. Apparently, so we've got just a few questions here that have been queuing up here. I think probably something in the order of about 15. How do companies connect consumer psychology to their brand or launch a new brand?
The easiest way to start with is your color. Okay? If you leave here and you go down any main road in Raleigh, you're going to pass by McDonald's, Hardee's, Arby's, Subway, Chick-fil-A, keep naming the list. You go out west, you're going to find Jack in the Box and In-N-Out Burger. What two colors on every one of these logos? Red and yellow. Red and yellow trigger hunger. You may not think like, oh, red and yellow, I want to eat a Big Mac. Your mind thinks that. It gets hungry when it sees those two colors. Start with your brand colors. Colors communicate. Every color says a certain thing. It also says a certain thing based upon the segment that you're trying to target. Your name does a lot too. So find ways to connect with them in ways they may not understand.
So now that you're talking about colors and logos, what exactly does light green and red trigger?
So red is obviously food. Red is also a very tense color. So if you were going into a tense board meeting, I would recommend you not wear a red tie. You probably want to wear a blue tie. Light green, is that what you said? Light green and
lime green.
Like that lime green back there?
Yeah.
Creative.
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 So it's the tension between food and creativity.
Mm-hmm.
That's product camp, ladies and gentlemen. Right? Tension between food and creativity. Besides fear, what are the effective emotions to target for marketing material?
Okay. So we don't want to use fear. I'm going to cover that for all into new parts. Fear is very persuasive, but fear is one of the persuasive constructs that can backfire very easily. Fear is used with insurance companies, protective services, alarms, Nest. About a decade ago or so, a company came out with a ridiculous ad on television for a home security system. And it was so ridiculous that Saturday Night Live spoofed it. So they made it so it was a single woman lived in a 5-bedroom house by herself, and everyone was trying to break in and kidnap her. That is so ridiculous. So don't use fear. It has a chance to backfire. I'm sorry, I lost the question.
Besides fear, what other effective emotions would you target in marketing material?
Happiness. Don't make people, unless you're in journalism or insurance, stay away from fear. Make people happy. If you give people a positive experience, if they actually smile, if you see their lips go up, you've got a really good product or service. You gave them a good time. It's that key E word is experience. Give someone an experience and they'll return to you every time even better. Give someone's significant other an experience, and the person you're targeting will come back to you every time. Make the house happy, make the buyer will come back to you.
I have to tell you, this is counter to what I would have said. That fear has certain limitations. Unfortunately, we've got an election cycle, and we've got people that have been able to manipulate us. Foreign governments have been able to manipulate us to tear us apart, to take that common ground that we used to have and made it so that we no longer can even talk about things that we agree on without our blood pressures rising. Is there some nuance that I'm missing that these guys have been wildly effective in tearing us apart? At the same time, we shouldn't use it?
Well, politics is a different beast, and we do some work in voter decision making. So, for example, in a year or so now, you're gonna start seeing some candidates pop up on running for office on both sides. And now let's talk Democratic and Republican national conventions. Regardless of which candidate is on each one of those stages, they're gonna say something like this. Last week, I spoke to a person named Austin. Austin is struggling with college debt, unemployment, and Austin lives in Ohio. Now, let's break down that paragraph real quick. Austin is a very popular name amongst young voters. Ohio is a swing state, very important for both candidates. Now we're talking, social proof, we're talking persuasion, likeness. Who is like? You can all probably know a person named Austin as well too. Like, oh, I know a person like Austin, or I can relate to Austin. And is Austin a real person? Maybe, maybe not. Depends on who the candidate is or who's advising the candidate. But they're going to say that because it's going to trigger a thought of connection between yourself and who that person is being spoken about. Fear does work there because really, when you're targeting political campaigns, you're not targeting to convert someone to red to blue and vice versa. You're targeting that same person that is going to vote for you to actually go out and vote. That's the problem. Most people aren't going to switch. It's getting that person to get off their behind and go to a voting booth is the most significant challenge.
So if you were a podcast person, and it turns out you actually are a podcast, you have your own podcast, the ClickSuasion podcast. How do you get people to listen to it?
So we actually don't market the podcast. We don't do traditional marketing. We believe if we provide good content, people will come, people will share it. And we thought, well, okay, this is a semi-traditional product we're going to release to the market. We're going to follow through with what we believe is a good marketing strategy, which is to make a good product, people will come, good word of mouth, and we did that. And the first couple episodes was okay, and then it took off. It just blew up not overnight, it took me a couple weeks. But then it just word of mouth and people sharing it. So we just typically share our podcast on social media, and that's it. But we are actually doing something new called click sites. And if you go to our website, clicksuasion.com, or clicksuasion.com/click-sites, you'll see the first two are up. They're kind of betas, testing it out. We're taking clips of the podcast and turning it into videos. Go back to video. We'll make some more interesting. So 30-second clips of the podcast.
So Michael, you've been spectacular. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're a professional speaker and you're CEO running ClickSuasion. You're launching a brand new idea, a different approach. You're pivoting. How would you characterize it, and what are you doing?
So you're talking about ClickSuasion Labs, or just in general?
You're doing something different, something new.
Okay.
The buzz is out there. I got to find out what's coming up.
Oh, for me, what's coming up? What's new?
Yeah.
Today is the first day of the new business name. We rebranded to ClickSuasion Labs. The website went up a couple days ago. We got click sites running up. We are now offering Chief Behavioral Officer services, on-call Chief Behavioral Officer services. And we're also, I'll share the fun, interesting research part. So one of the things we're trying to do is understand how journalists can increase the public's willingness to trust them. So we're researching how journalists curate their content, how the public digests their media, and how we can create ways to have the trust more willing to the public. I can't even say that right. How the public can be more likely to trust the journalists, and how the journalists can create more content that's trustworthy.
Wow, that's a daunting task.
Yeah, it's tough.
So for us, you are our fractional Chief Behavioral Officer.
I'll take that.
You'll take it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mike. Appreciate it. So we wanted to have this kind of an approach where you would look at a problem that you have that you're challenged with, to bring that challenge forward, to help you articulate that challenge, to struggle with how do I put this into words, to find a community around you that are looking at the same problem or similar kind of problems, to put you in contact with them, to have a presentation where we start to get our creative juices flowing, and now the problem comes. Can we solve those problems that you just mentioned? So for the next 15 minutes, we're going to ask you to sit at the tables that you're at and brainstorm about the issues that were brought forward that were important to you. Why did you sit at that table? What conclusions can you draw from the combined intellect that's sitting at your table? And then what we're going to do is ask one of you guys, and we want you to write it down, and we want one of you guys to write down what was the problem, what was the key element, and what was your solution? Okay? And then I'm going to ask you at the end to share with everybody what you found out. Because at the end of the day, if we're not struggling with the problem that you're working on today, chances are tomorrow we will be. So if you would be so kind, for the next 15, 20 minutes, work amongst yourselves on the problems that you brought to the table. Thanks.